What's going on, everybody? Jesse here, and in today's episode, we're going to pick up where we left off in the last episode. If you remember, in the last episode, we made it to where we have an outline of our items. So in this one, we're going to make it so it's interactable. So you can see here, we got the objects in the world. If we walk up to it and look at it, there we go. We can see the outline. There's a little bit that goes on to being able to create this, but it's not too bad. So I hope you guys are looking forward to this one. Grab your popcorn, sit back, relax, and let's get this thing going. All right, one of the first things I want to do is I want to come down here and I'm going to select the world post process volume that we created in the last episode, and I want to turn off the auto exposure. I noticed in the videos it gets a little bit bright, so if you don't know how to do this, let me show you. Go ahead and select your post process, and then come down here, search for exposure, and we got the minimum and maximum brightness. Now I'm just going to set these to 1 and 1, and you're going to see it actually kind of gets a little bit brighter, but so we can control it here. We could set those lowers if we really wanted to, but we're going to come up here to exposure compensation, and now I'm just going to take this and I'm going to turn this down to, let's say, 0.4. And there we go. I'm not sure how that's going to turn out on the videos, but hopefully it should look okay. And it's going to make it a little easier to see, like the outlines and all that stuff. So hopefully it comes through good there. So let's save that. And now if we come out here, close out the search right there. Now I want to select the item that we applied the outline to last episode. And let's go ahead and do a custom depth pass search on the display mesh, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to disable the random depth pass because we're going to set this to do it dynamically this episode, so we don't need that set now. So again, I'm going to save that. So let's go ahead, and first thing we need to do is we need to go into our project settings. So go ahead and open that up, come over here, and we need to go down to the collisions under the engine area, and we're going to add a custom trace channel here. So select the new trace channel, and I'm going to name this one interactable. And then for the default response, I'm actually going to do the default as ignore. So it's going to automatically apply this trace channel to every object in the world, and any new object that's going to be created in the world, it's going to give it this one. Well, we don't want everything to be interactable, only things that we specify to be interactable, so we want it to ignore it. So go ahead and hit accept. You're going to see it pop in down here, and that should do that. So we can close out the project settings. Now we're going to come down here and we're going to create a new folder down here. So under content, right click and new folder, and let's name this one interfaces. We're going to use interfaces here to help us interact. It's going to make things much simpler. We could use event dispatchers, things like that, but interfaces are usually a little less overhead than interfaces. So inside the interface, let's right click and blueprint class, come down here and select a blueprint interface, and I'm going to name mine BI for blueprint interface underscore interactable. All right, let's open this up now. Get in here and dock this up here. So for our first function, what I'm going to call this one, I'm actually going to call this one, let's see, F2 set look at. This is what we're going to use to be able to interact with the objects in the world, so we can switch the custom depth pass on and off as we need to. So for the input, for our first input, we're going to go ahead and leave this as a Boolean, and I'm going to name this one B is looking at. So this way, if we're looking at something, this is just kind of descriptive, this will set the value for the custom depth pass on and off. And for output, we're going to need actually two outputs here. For the first one, let's name this interact text. We're actually going to have to go back and set another variable on our base item. What this interact text is going to be, and it'll all make sense in a little bit, but what this is going to end up being is we're going to set this for things like when you visualize, or when you identify an object in the world, when you're looking at it, this is going to pop up like pickup or open storage, or something like that. It's going to be open, and then this will be name. We're going to pass across the name of the item. So if we set this to say pickup bread, right? This is how we're going to end up reading it. It'll make sense. I'm sure I pretty much confused you in that one, but let's make this of type name. Make sure you compile it and save it. So we're done with that. So real quick, before we move into the other stuff, let's go ahead and go to our inventory, our items, and let's select the base item. Like I said, we're gonna have to add this new variable here. So select a new variable, and I'm gonna name mine interact text. And of course, it's gonna end up being of type text. Now I'm just gonna take this, and I'm gonna move this up above the display name, just for my orderly structure here. You can do it however you want. That'll be fine for me. Compile it. So now, because this is the base item, it's going to inherit to everything. So we don't want to set a default value for this, but I do want to come over here to, since we're working with food right now, this is the only one, I'm going to set the food parent. Remember, this is the parent of the bread and the berry. So I'm going to open this one up, and I am going to actually set the class defaults. I'm going to come over here to the interact text, and if we need to otherwise, we can set it down the road. But right now, I think all my food items, I want the interact text. So when we're looking at it, I want it to say pick up, because that's what we're going to be doing. You can't eat the food that's on the ground. You're going to pick it up, put it in your inventory, and you can eat it from the food, which is what the use action text is for. And then the display name. So as we show this a little bit later, and it'll make sense in a few minutes, but it'll say pick up and then the item name. So pick up bread, pick up berries, whatever the case may be. So let's save that and come on out. Let's go to the BP world item. So let's go back up a level here, grab the BP world item. So what we need to do in this one, let's go ahead and go to class settings, come down here. Let me move this out a little bit so you can see. And under the implemented interfaces, we're going to select add, and then let's find our BI underscore interactable. And there we go. So now you see over here, this opened up to interfaces. So now that function that we created over the interface is now available. So let's double select that, open it up, and now we can set what this function does for this item. So right off the bat, we're going to grab our display mesh, and then off the display mesh, we're going to do set render custom depth. Make sure you select the custom depth pass. That's the one we want to do. Hook it up here. And so what we need to do for setting it, we're going to come over here. We're just going to pull off the is looking at value, and we're going to set it in there. So now whatever we pass here is going to either enable or disable that. And then for the output information, let's grab our item variable there, select off this, and let's do the default class, or the class defaults right there. Pull off the interaction text. Let's set it up there and connect it to that, and the display name to the name right there. Oh, I didn't fix that, so let's do that really quick. I forgot to change this down to a name. Actually, I thought I did it. I don't know why it's not showing there. It didn't save. Anyways, compile it. Come back over here, and let's compile this one to refresh nodes. There we go. All right, so let's do the interact text again, and then come down, display name. Let's hook that in right there. Select this, hide unconnected pins, and there we go. At least for now, this is all we're going to do. There may be some stuff we come back and do a little bit later, but either way, this is what we have for this. So go ahead and make sure you compile it and save it. And with that done, let's open up our player characters. So come up here to characters, true first person, blueprints, and let's open up the character. So in here now, what we need to do is we're going to create a new function, and we're going to call this vision trace. Okay, and this is essentially going to be responsible for us being able, for our character being able to see in the world. So we need to come up here, grab your follow camera. We're going to run the trace. We're going to run a trace out of here, and we're going to run it off of our camera from the wherever direction our camera is aiming is where it's going to set. So from here, let's get the world location of your follow camera. Then again, off of your follow camera, let's get world rotation. Okay, and then from the rotation, we're going to get off of this. We're going to get forward vector. So that way we know which way this rotation and getting the forward vector from the rotation. This is going to tell us specifically which direction the camera is facing. So we'll use that. And then of course the world location is where the camera's at. So right click and let's do a line trace. Now down the road you may find as you're doing this that you may want to do something other than a line trace. Remember, line trace, that's generally going to be pixel perfect. It's very small and narrow. So some items you might find in your game are going to be difficult to do. So in that case, you can come down and instead of doing a line, you could do like a capsule trace. So let's just do trace by channel. And here's all the different traces by channel you can get. You can run a sphere, you can run a box or a capsule, whatever you want to do. But for now, let's just stick with the line trace by channel. All right, and generally, if you want to change this down the road, if we do want to do a sphere or something for this to kind of give us a bigger scope of what we're seeing when we're looking into the world, then this is easy to change. You can just, you know, put in your new trace channel and then select it there. So the world location, this is going to be our start right here. All right, so now we need to, I'm going to put a reroute node in here because we're going to need to do this. We're going to need information from this. Drag off and let's add vector plus vector, and then I'm going to select the forward vector from here, and I'm actually going to hit a multiply from here. So let's multiply this vector, and that's actually not going to work. Let's see, multiply move pin, let's convert pin. There we go. That's kind of a weird roundabout way to do that. We're going to turn this into a float. So let's create a new variable here. And what this variable is going to be, I'm going to call mine vision distance. And if you couldn't figure it out from that, this is going to be how far we can see out from our camera. So set this as a float. I'm going to compile it so I can come over here and set the default value. And my default value of this is actually going to be, for now, 350. Remember, this is in centimeters. So from the camera, 350 centimeters. Just decide, you know, it's all part of game balance. Decide what's going to work out for you, how far you want to be able to see out in front of you. But for now, 350 for me is going to work pretty good. So I'm going to take this vision distance variable and now I'm going to plug it into there. So from here, now let's go ahead and plug that into the addition. And this is going to be our endpoint. So again, our start point is going to be the location of our camera. We're calculating the forward vector from our rotation, and we're going to multiply it by our vision distance, because this forward vector, this is going to be a normalized number value. So we're going to multiply this by the vision distance. This is going to give us a length in centimeters. We're going to add it to our current location to be able to shoot it out, and that's going to be our end location. The trace channel we're going to want to do is the one we just created, the interactable. So now this is only going to return any hit results when we hit the trace channel. You can run a debug on this if you want. Make sure you ignore self. You don't want to hit in the camera. And then the trace complex, we don't need that. So this should be good. So pull off of the out hit and let's break this. Expand this out. So what we want from here, we're actually going to want the hit actor. So now if we hit something, we want the actor that's coming off of here, okay? But what we're gonna do with this actor is we're gonna have to track this, right? So in order for us to keep track of the actor we hit, let's create another variable here, and I'm gonna call this one vision actor. You can call this whichever one, whatever you want, but this is gonna hold the current actor that we're hitting, and I'm gonna set this actually to just actor. We just want a plain old actor object reference. And the reason why we're doing this is because if we end up having different types of items, you just want it to hold that item. That was the point of us using the interface, is because now we just take this actor. It doesn't matter what this actor is. It's going to call the message for the interface. And if the item has the function we're trying to call off that interface, then it'll interact with it. So that's why we kind of went that route. So choose actor. This way we don't have to be too fine in what we're doing. All right, so let's go ahead and now we got to do a bunch of checks, right? You got to think that we're going to be storing what we're hitting into this variable here. So now we need to do a bunch of checks on this to so that way we're not setting this when it doesn't need to be set. If it's the same actor, we don't want to keep setting it over and over and over again. That's just going to take too much processes, too much memory for that. And at the same time, if we're switching actors fast, you know, in the case of like items side by side, if we don't run checks on here to see if it's the same item, then you could move so fast that it's actually not going to process the outline on the new object. So we need to run a few checks on this. So first off, let's drag off of this and let's do equals, and is our vision actor equal to what we're currently hitting? So hold B, select in the graph, and so are we looking at the same item that's in here? So if there's nothing in here, then this isn't going to be equal, right? But if they're different, they're not going to be equal. So two different other checks are going to have to come off of this true. But if they're not equal, so what we need to do now, actually if they are equal, this will be the easy one. If they are equal, then we don't want to do anything. So let's just pull off this and hit return. We want to add the return node here at the end. It's good to be in a habit. Unreal lets you get away with it if you want to, but when you're running a function, it's good to have a return node. So try to be in that habit. Okay, so if they're the same, we don't want to do anything. If they're not the same, what we need to do is come off here and let's do is valid. And I'm going to run the macro so I don't have to add the branch to it. It's the same thing, is valid. So what do we want to check is valid? I'm going to take the vision actor here, get it, and I'm going to plug it in there to that. So is this a valid object? In other words, is this null? Null being, is it empty? Then if it is empty, then we're going to come off of here and we're going to run something off of here. If it's not empty, then we need to go up here. So if it's not empty, that means we're looking at, these aren't the same, false, they're not the same. Is there something in this variable? Yes, that means we're looking at something different. So what do we need to do here? And if it's false, and that means it means these aren't the same, come in here, and this isn't valid, so it's empty. So we do something here. So let's pull off of this one first. This one will be a little bit easier. So what do we need to do here? Let's take our vision actor, pull it out here, and let's set the vision actor now. And what's the vision actor going to be? It's going to come over here. We're going to take the hit actor that we just hit, and we're going to set it into vision actor. And the nice thing about making this as an actor, we don't have to cast this every single time to our item, right, to our base item. We don't have to cast it to that. It's just a plain actor. We got it right there. So now that we've got that, let's pull off of the vision actor now, and we're going to type set look at. This is the function we created in the interface. So you can see here it says set look at message. So now we're going to send a message. It doesn't matter if this actor has this function in it or not, whether it inherits. We're not checking. We don't care if it inherits or this interface or not. We're just going to call this on it. If it inherits from this, or if it has this interface, then it will run this function. If not, then it'll just ignore it. But we're calling something that will inherit it, at least at this point. So is looking at, we're going to hard set this one. So we're going to come here now, because remember, not the same. It's empty, so we're setting it right now. So which means that this vision actor that we are now setting, we need to set as custom depth pass right here. We're not going to worry about these right now. This is going to go into a HUD, so we're not going to worry about that for the time being. But let's go ahead and do a return node. Hook this up, and for now we're done with this. This is actually, I'm going to put a comment in here because we need to come back and do some work in here. I'm going to type deal with HUD information, so that way I know when I come back. And a lot of times I will set things like this as yellow. Informational is good for me. It's visually, I see yellow, I go, oh hey, I've got to come address this. It's important. If I use red, that means, hey, I know I have some sort of error in here. I need to come back and deal with this a little bit later. So I color code my comments like this so I know. But I got it right here. I'm going to deal with the HUD information at the end of this, which means hooking all this up. All right, compile. Let's make sure we save it. Remember, I got my compile set up to where every time I compile, it automatically saves the blueprint. So make sure you compile it and save it. Now let's head back up over here. And again, let's remember, is what we have in the variable the same? No, they're not the same. So now we're coming down here. Do we have something already in our vision actor? We complete a no. So now, yes, we do have something in here, but so this means we're looking at something different. So now we need to deal with that. So grab our vision actor. I'm just going to drag off of this, and I'm going to do set look at. I'm going to send a message there. Let's hook this up. And the message is we're going to return false. This is going to turn off the custom depth render for the actor we currently have in the variable. We're going to set that to false. Then we're going to come over here and I'm just going to select a reroute node there for now. I'm going to move this over just a little bit. And you don't have to do this. You can pull out whatever you want. Actually, we're pulling off of the hit actor right here. So that's why I got the reroute node. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to set the vision actor now. So hold Alt and drag out the variable. We're going to set the vision actor for the new hit actor. So again, we're pulling off the hit actor. I put in a reroute node right there, just pulling off of that, setting the hit actor or the vision actor. And then now we need to pull off of this and we need to check is valid. Again, I'm going to run the macro on here is valid, and the reason why we're doing this, running this now, is because this could still be returning false, right? So if this comes up false and there's something in here, these still aren't going to be the same. There's something in here even though this is returning false. So it's coming up here, it's checking, we're clearing the information from there, and now we're checking, is this new hit actor that we're setting, is this false, or is this a null pointer, or is there something in here? So if this is valid, then what we need to do is I'm going to pull off of here and I'm just going to add a reroute node, and then I'm going to go set look at message. I'm going to set it right there, hook this up to is valid, and we're going to select true for is looking at. And then if this is false, that means the new actor we're looking at is empty. So let's just add a return node there. I'm actually going to duplicate the return node and I'm going to set it right here. And again, we're going to have more work to do right here. So I'm just going to copy this comment and set it up here because we're going to have to come deal with it right here as well. And then that's it. We've got the vision actor coming through, setting it here. Hopefully I was able to explain that good enough to you. So yeah, there's the code right there. Generally speaking, a lot of times people would take this now and you put this in like a tick function. You run it every tick, but there's no reason for us to hook this up and set it on every tick. I think it's just kind of a waste of processing power that we've got. Tick, whenever you can save any time off a tick, you should do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into begin play. Remember, we're still here in our true first person character. We're on the event graph. So in the begin play of our character, I'm actually going to go set timer by function name. All right. So we're going to set a timer on this, and we're going to call the function we're going to call is vision distance. Now remember, this has got to be spelled the same. So I believe capitalization counts. So vision trace is the name of our function, and the time, I'm actually going to run this. I've done some testing on this, at least in the past. I haven't done it recently, but you don't want to set it too high. But at the same time, I found 0.1, so that's 1/10 of a second. So really that comes out to, if you're running at 60 frames a second, so 1/10 of that. So every 6 ticks is about when this would run if you're running at 60 frames a second. So set it to looping. So I wouldn't set this much more. Do your own testing. You'll be able to see, and I'll point out when we do our testing where this time comes into account. But if this is too high, then it's not going to switch off your items fast enough, and it's not going to engage them. When you look at them, it may not engage right away. I found anything over a 0.25, anything over a quarter of a second is really noticeable, but I found the sweet spot to be about 0.1. All right, so let's go ahead, and I want to save this just in case I need it a little bit later. So I'm going to right click on here, promote this to a variable, and I'll just call this vision timer. So that way we store this. So if we have to come back and maybe even change this later, make sure we're running, whatever we got to do, we've got this handled here. So now we've got this. We don't have to run it off every tick. Every 1/10 of a second, it's going to run this vision trace for us. So let's go ahead and compile and save it. And last thing we need to do in order to get this to work is let's go ahead and head over to your BP world item. And then from here, go ahead and select your display mesh. Come up here to class defaults, or excuse me, display mesh, not class defaults. I forgot to change here. Go down to your collision and find your collision presets. We need to change this to custom. It's going to open up down here. So what we need to do is interactable. You see it set it automatically to ignore when we created it, but these, we actually want it to block that channel. So do that, compile and save it, and let's head out to the map and let's make sure that this all works. All right, so now let's hit play, cross our fingers, and hope that this works, huh? All right, let's come in here, walk up to the item, and there we go. We got an outline, look away, and it disappears back. There we go. Perfect. Come over here, look at the other one. Same thing. We got the outline for that one. So let's double check this, switch off of the item. See, if we didn't run those checks in there, switching off of these items, we would have some issues with this. It wouldn't always switch like it was supposed to. So we got these. We can switch back and forth really fast. If we don't have any issues with it, look off, and there it goes. And again, you notice here, we set the timer to only run every 1/10 of a second, and that seems to be just enough, right? So we're saving us a little bit of tick power, a little bit of calculation, and you know, it seems to be fine. And you can tune this up to your game. Really, you could probably even make it a little bit slower. You know, this is just how quick we're able to see and interact with things. So you don't want to make it too slow, but at the same time, you know, do what you need to for your game. But that's just an alternative way other than using Ticket. So I hope you guys found all this useful. And if you liked the video, please do me a favor, go down, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe while you're down there liking as well. Maybe even hit the notification bell. That way you can be informed. We got plenty more in front of us with this, as well as other things on the channel. So again, thanks for joining me, and until the next one, peace.